Are you considering purchasing a retractable leash for your dog or puppy? If you're thinking about purchasing one, or you're considering continuing to use one you already have, make sure you watch this video if you care about your dog's safety. For the best dog training and product advice, be sure to hit subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I put out a new video every Wednesday. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa. I've dog sat and trained hundreds and hundreds of dogs and puppies, and I love sharing my advice with all of you. Before we get started, let's talk about what a retractable leash is. A retractable leash, sometimes called a Flexi Leash, is essentially a thin cord wrapped around a spring-loaded device inside a plastic handle. The handle has a few buttons that control how much your dog can be extended away from you. Now in this video, I'm gonna go over the pros and cons of both. But spoiler alert, the cons outweigh the pros, and they outweigh the positives by a lot. Because of that, I am going to end this video with a few alternatives that you can use if you want the benefits of a retractable leash without the negatives. All right, so let's get started. First, let's address some of the reasons why they're so popular in the first place. Number one, they're not confining like regular leashes. They give your pup more freedom to sniff around and explore. Number two, if your pup is very particular about potty spots, it helps the process move by a lot faster because they're able to move around and find their potty spot, having that freedom. So those are pretty much the only positives, and I'll give you some alternatives that you can use instead of a retractable leash at the end of this video. But let's talk about some of the cons, which actually are pretty huge safety issues. So number one, you have less control of your dog, leaving them to be more susceptible to dangerous situations. So a reminder, some of these leashes can extend up to 26 feet. When your dog is 26 feet away, it's really hard to control whether they run into the street or maybe even approach an aggressive dog. If they run into an aggressive dog, you're basically leaving that dog's owner to break up the situation since you're 10 or 20 feet away. Number two, the thin cord on the Flexi Leash actually can easily break. Now, believe it or not, there are actually warnings usually printed on the packaging of these Flexi Leashes. It's just that most of us don't read, so we don't even notice these warnings. So if your dog runs with force, the Flexi Leash can easily break. So let's say you have a big, powerful dog and they see a squirrel and the Flexi Leash snaps. The second the Flexi Leash snaps, they're gonna continue running towards the squirrel, which can result in a lost dog or even just a dangerous situation where they run into a street. The third reason you won't wanna use a Flexi Leash is because they can cause terrible injuries. Now, if your dog walker gets tangled up or if your dog gets tangled up in a Flexi Leash, it could cause some serious burn marks. It can also cause like cuts on skin for both you and your dog. And in severe cases, it can cause amputation of a part of your dog. This is no joke. There are stories of dogs getting choked when their throat gets wrapped around a Flexi Leash, or even their leg having severe cuts because of a Flexi Leash. And especially if you're walking multiple dogs, you absolutely want to stay away from a Flexi Leash. The fourth reason you want to avoid a Flexi Leash is because the handles are really bulky. You might be wondering why this would be even listed, and that's because when handles are really bulky, you can easily drop the handle. Now, when you drop the handle, a few things can happen. Number one, your dog is now free and you have no control over your dog. As they're walking, when the handle is dragging behind them, it actually mimics something chasing them. So they continue to run and the handle continues to drag behind them. So they can actually get pretty far from you because they're very fearful at this point. They're being chased by this scary thing. And then also, even if they don't get in a physically dangerous situation, they can also be psychologically damaged and be scared of leashes because of this traumatic situation that happened to them. And then last but not least, a retractable leash undoes all of your loose leash walking training. Essentially what the Flexi Leash does is reward your dog for pulling. Every time they pull, they get closer to what they're trying to get toward. All right, so by this point, you probably know why you shouldn't buy a Flexi Leash, but maybe you you still want to figure out how you can allow your dog to explore and sniff around. So first, if you've already watched my loose leash training video, you know that we want to reward our dogs for when they're behind us. If you haven't watched it, make sure you watch that to learn how you can get your dog to walk calmly on a regular leash. Now, along with walking calmly on a leash, I like to incorporate a cue called Go Sniff. And Go Sniff allows your dog to know that this is their opportunity to move away from training mode and just start sniffing whatever they want. And sniffing is really important for dogs. There's a lot of social information out there, kind of like how we would check our text messages. Dog sniffing around is a way to check their pee mail and get social information from other dogs. Another way you can allow your dog to have freedom is to teach them how to walk without a leash, so off leash. And the first step in doing this is to have that loose leash foundation, and then from there adding in a lot of distractions. And once they're really, really solid and you know that they have a great recall, which is also teaching them to come on demand, then you can start to walk them off leash in places where they permit it. Now, I don't recommend this unless your dog has 100% accuracy with their recall, which recall is another word for coming when calmed. If you want to practice your recall, I actually have a PDF called the Ultimate Good Dog Blueprint that you can download below. It's free. Basically, you can get through this PDF in 5 or 10 minutes, and it has all of my training tools that I use, along with how to use them for the most common behavior issues. All right, so if you like this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when I put out a new video, and share with all of your dog lover friends. That's it for today, everyone, and I will see you next Wednesday.